Sciela looked out of the wide glass window of the starship, her eyes following the streams of light from distant stars. She had always loved this view. To her, the universe felt endless, full of possibilities. And yet today, it felt different. Today, it felt empty. A weight pressed on her chest, heavier than anything she had ever felt. She had trusted her people. She had trusted her mentors. She had believed that loyalty and honesty were more than just words. They were the foundation of her world. But now, that foundation was crumbling. Sciela's home planet, Lyria, had always been a place of beauty and order. Cities floated above luminous oceans, and towers of crystal reflected the sunlight in patterns that danced across the water. Every citizen had a role, and every role mattered. Sciela had been trained as a cultural liaison, a bridge between her people and others. She had been proud of her work. She had believed in the mission. Her latest assignment had been delicate. Lyria had been negotiating with another alien race, the Terran, for a trade agreement. Sciela had spent months learning their language, their habits, even their jokes. She had done everything right, and yet something had gone wrong, something she could not control. The blame had fallen on her. At first, Sciela had thought it was a mistake. Perhaps her mentors had misunderstood. Perhaps they would see the truth and stand by her. She had been loyal to them for as long as she could remember. They had guided her, taught her, protected her, and she had trusted them without question. But the truth was far crueler. Instead of protection, she had received betrayal. Quietly, without explanation, they had labeled her a liability. They had whispered to others that she had failed intentionally, that she could not be trusted, and then they had arranged for her to be exiled to a remote station at the edge of known space. It was called Station Vetra, a place where few traveled and fewer returned. Sciela's hands trembled as she packed her belongings. Everything she owned, clothing, data tablets, records of her work, was reduced to what could fit in a small satchel. Even her personal things, the trinkets she had collected over the years, she had to leave behind. She felt the weight of loss in every movement, not just the loss of possessions, but the loss of trust, the loss of home, the loss of the life she had known. The transport ship that would take her to Vetra arrived without ceremony. A small vessel, gray and unremarkable, awaited her at the docking bay. She stepped inside, the door closing with a soft hiss. The interior was cold and sterile. No one greeted her. No one explained anything. She was alone. As the ship left the orbit of Lyria, Sciela pressed her forehead against the glass window again. She watched her planet shrink into a bright blue pearl, surrounded by rings of clouds. A lump formed in her throat. This was the first time she had ever felt truly alone. She had always believed that family and mentors would be there, no matter what. Now she knew the truth. Sometimes, those you trust most are the ones who will hurt you the deepest. The journey to Station Vetra was long. Days passed in silence, broken only by the ship's soft hum and the occasional automated announcements. Sciela tried to keep her mind occupied. She reviewed the Terran negotiations in her mind, hoping to find some mistake she had made. Maybe if she understood what went wrong, she could prove her innocence. But every memory seemed to turn against her. Every decision, every word, every step of the mission that she had taken in good faith now felt like a chain around her neck. When she finally arrived at Station Vetra, it was nothing like the worlds she had known. The station was small, old, and worn. Lights flickered along the corridors, and the walls were scratched and dented. The air smelled faintly of oil and metal. It was not a welcoming place. Sciela was escorted to a small room, barely larger than a closet. A narrow bed, a small table, and a chair were the only furnishings. The door closed behind her, and for the first time she felt truly imprisoned. She was free to move within the station, yes, but in truth she was trapped. No one came to see her. No one explained her purpose here. She was just there. Days turned into weeks. Sciella spent most of her time wandering the corridors, observing the few other residents of the station. Most ignored her. Some stared, wary of the newcomer. She realized that Station Vetra was not just a place for exile, it was a place for being forgotten. Loneliness gnawed at her. She tried to communicate with her mentors, sending messages through secure channels. Every message went unanswered. Every plea for help returned only silence. She began to understand something she had never fully grasped before. The world could be cruel, and even those who seemed devoted to you could abandon you when it suited them. One night, as she sat by the window of her small room, looking out at the distant stars, she felt a strange mix of anger and sadness. She had been trained to solve problems, to mediate conflicts, to understand others. But she had been powerless to protect herself from betrayal. How could she ever trust anyone again? Then she heard a sound outside her door, a soft knock. She froze. Visitors were rare on Vetra, and the few who came were usually officials or security personnel, not friendly faces. Slowly, she opened the door. A young maintenance worker stood there, a human named Caleb. His uniform was dusty, his expression curious rather than hostile. He held a small toolkit in his hands, but it was clear he had not come for repairs. "Are you Sciella?" he asked. His voice was calm, not commanding, not judging. She nodded cautiously. "Yes. Who are you?" "Caleb," he said. "I work here. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. It's not often we get visitors like you." Sciella studied him carefully. Humans were known across many systems, but she had met very few. They were strange creatures, sometimes reckless, sometimes brave, sometimes cruel. She had no reason to trust him, and yet something in his eyes told her he might be different. I am fine," she said, her voice tight. Caleb shrugged. "You don't look fine. You look like someone who's been pushed out. Do you want to talk about it?" Sciella hesitated. No one had asked her that in weeks, months. The thought of telling a stranger everything, the betrayal, the exile, the loss, was terrifying. And yet a part of her wanted to speak, to release some of the weight she carried. I was betrayed," she whispered. "By those I trusted most. They sent me here, and they left me to die quietly. No one answers my messages. No one cares." Caleb nodded slowly. "I see. That's awful. You don't deserve that." For the first time since leaving Lyria, Sciella felt a spark of something like hope. Not much, just a small ember. But it was there. Perhaps humans, unpredictable as they were, could offer her something her own people could not. Honesty, even in its roughest form. Over the next few days, Sciella watched Caleb move through the station. He repaired machines, spoke with other workers, and never seemed to judge her or treat her as weak. He asked questions, listened, and respected her space. It was strange, almost alien, but comforting. One evening, as the station's dim lights reflected on the metal walls, Sciella realized that she had begun to trust him. Slowly, carefully. Not as she had trusted her mentors, with blind faith, but with the cautious hope that maybe, just maybe, someone could be different. Sciella sat by her small window again, thinking about the stars. The universe was vast, full of dangers and wonders alike. She had been abandoned by those she loved, betrayed by those she believed in. But perhaps, she thought, there was still a chance to find someone who would stand by her. Caleb had shown her that humans were unpredictable, yes, but also capable of loyalty and courage. And if she could find a way to trust him, perhaps she could survive this exile, perhaps even turn it into something more. For the first time in weeks, Sayela allowed herself to breathe freely. The weight of betrayal was still there, but it no longer crushed her entirely. She would need strength, cleverness, and courage to survive Vetra and whatever came next. And maybe, just maybe, she had found an ally in a human named Caleb. And so, alone but not hopeless, betrayed but not defeated, Sayela watched the stars stretch endlessly before her. Somewhere out there in the dark and silent vastness, her future awaited, and she would meet it, carefully, wisely, and without forgetting the lessons of betrayal that had brought her here. Sayela woke to the hum of the station. Light from the overhead panels flickered slightly, casting soft shadows across the narrow room. She had not slept well. Her dreams were full of whispers and shadows, faces she had trusted, voices she had believed in, all turning against her. She sat on the edge of the bed, holding her knees, and tried to steady her breathing. A soft knock came at the door. Sayela stiffened. Visitors were rare on Vetra, and she had learned to be cautious. Slowly, she opened the door. Caleb stood there, holding a tray with a small meal. "Thought you might be hungry?" he said. His voice was steady, gentle, without judgment. Sayela stared at the food. She had not eaten properly in days. The rejection from her mentors, the isolation of the station, the cold metal corridors, it all had drained her. She looked at him, unsure if she should trust the gesture. Why are you helping me?" she asked finally. Caleb shrugged lightly. "Doesn't mean you have to trust me, but I know what it's like to be ignored, left out, treated like you don't matter. You look like someone who's been through that. I don't like seeing it." Sayela's throat tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like this, not even her closest mentors. She wanted to say something, to ask more, but the words caught in her mouth. Instead, she nodded and took the tray. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't have to say that," Caleb replied. He gave a small, awkward smile and turned to leave. "I'll be around if you need anything." Over the next few days, Caleb visited often. He did not force conversation, but he stayed nearby, fixing small things, moving through the station, always aware of Sayela's presence. She began to notice things she had missed before. The quiet way he spoke to other humans, the patience he showed when machines broke down, the way he never judged her or asked unnecessary questions. Sayela started to talk, slowly at first. She told him small things, how long she had been on Vetra, the silence from her mentors, the loneliness that gnawed at her. Caleb listened. He never interrupted. He never dismissed her feelings. And in that simple act, Sayela felt something she had not felt in a long time. Understanding. One evening, as the two sat near a section of the station overlooking a dense asteroid field, Caleb spoke. "You must have seen a lot in your time," he said. "You've traveled between worlds, learned languages, met races most humans never know about." Sayela looked at him, her expression careful. "Yes, but it seems all that knowledge does not protect me from betrayal." Caleb nodded. "No, it doesn't. But it can teach you how to survive it. You're smart. You'll figure a way through this." Sayela frowned. "Survive? I am not sure I want to survive. Sometimes I think it would be easier if I just gave up." Caleb's face softened. "I've felt that way before, but giving up, it doesn't fix anything. It doesn't stop the betrayal, and it doesn't stop you from existing. You survive because you matter. You survive because one choice can change everything." Sayela stared at him. There was something about the way he spoke, simple, honest, yet firm. No lies, no games. She realized humans could be unpredictable, but they could also be steady in ways her own people often were not. The next day, as she walked the corridors, she noticed a group of station workers whispering and glancing at her. Their expressions were cautious, wary, even a little fearful. Sayela understood quickly. They had heard about her, about why she was on Vetra. Some believed she had been guilty of failure. Some believed she had been dangerous. None of them knew the truth. Ciela felt a pang of anger. She had trusted her mentors, she had served her people faithfully, and now she was treated like a criminal. She realized she could not rely on others to see the truth. Only she could act. Only she could protect herself. She returned to Caleb that evening. He was repairing a broken panel in the corridor. "You're going to need more than patience here," she said. Caleb looked up, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I know, but you don't have to face this alone. We can figure it out together." Ciela shook her head. "I am not used to depending on others. Not anymore." Caleb smiled faintly. "You're not used to humans either, are you? We're strange, sometimes reckless, sometimes kind. But if you can learn to work with us, you might find you're stronger than you think." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I will need to be careful. My enemies, they may follow me even here." Caleb nodded. "Then we watch. We plan. We survive." That night, Ciela lay in her small bed, thinking about Caleb. She did not fully trust him, not yet. But there was a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, a human could help her survive Vetra and whatever danger awaited her. 2 nights later, the danger arrived. The alarms blared suddenly, echoing through the narrow corridors. Red lights flashed and the station shook slightly, as if it had been struck. Ciela bolted from her room, heart pounding. Caleb was already moving toward her, urgency in his steps. "Follow me!" he shouted. They ran through twisting corridors, dodging panicked workers and falling debris. Ciela's mind raced. Who could attack a small, nearly forgotten station at the edge of space? The station was not known for wealth, nor for secrets of great importance, or so she had thought. They reached the central hub, where a group of armed mercenaries had already breached the doors. Ciela froze. The men looked professional, organized, and dangerous. They carried weapons she had only seen from a distance, designed to pierce armor and shields alike. Caleb placed himself in front of her. "Stay behind me," he said. Ciela wanted to protest, to insist she could fight. But she realized she had no chance alone. She nodded, gripping the small satchel she carried tightly. The mercenaries advanced. Caleb raised a compact weapon and fired. The shots echoed through the hall, forcing the attackers to take cover. Caleb moved with precision, but there were too many. Ciela could see the danger clearly. Every moment they stayed, the risk grew. "Follow me!" Caleb yelled again. They ran into a maintenance tunnel, narrow and dark. The air smelled of oil and metal, and sparks fell from exposed wires. Ciela stumbled several times, but Caleb's hand grabbed her arm each time, steadying her. Finally, they reached a small storage bay. Caleb pushed a panel, revealing an old escape pod. "This might get us out," he said, "but it won't hold long if they follow." Ciela helped him pull the pod door shut, sealing them inside. She held her breath as the engines roared to life. The pod shot out of the station, spinning past the asteroid field. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly. For a moment, Ciela felt free, if only slightly. Caleb looked at her, sweat on his brow. "You okay?" "I think so," Ciela said, her voice trembling. Who were they?" He shook his head. "I don't know yet, but I think they were sent for you." "Someone doesn't want you to survive." Ciela's mind raced. Her mentors, her own people, or someone else entirely. The betrayal ran deeper than she had imagined. She realized now that trusting anyone would be dangerous. And yet, in Caleb, she had found someone willing to act, willing to fight by her side, willing to survive with her. They drifted in silence for a while, the stars surrounding them like witnesses. Ciela looked at Caleb again. He was human, unpredictable, stubborn, and strangely brave. Maybe he was the only one she could rely on. "This is only the beginning, isn't it?" she asked softly. Caleb nodded. "Yes, but we'll figure it out. Together." For the first time since her exile began, Sciella felt a spark of determination. She had been betrayed. She had been abandoned. But she was not defeated. Not yet. And with Caleb, she might have a chance to turn her exile into something more. A chance to survive, to fight back, and perhaps to find a new kind of trust. And so, drifting through the dark expanse of space, Sciella and Caleb began their journey together. The dangers were many, the enemies unknown, but for the first time, Sciella felt that hope was possible. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and somewhere in that vast darkness, a new path awaited. The escape pod drifted silently through space, its engines humming softly. Sciella stared out at the stars, her thoughts tangled with fear and confusion. The attack on Vetra had been sudden, brutal, and frightening. She could still see the armed mercenaries in her mind, their eyes cold and their weapons aimed with deadly precision. Caleb sat beside her, quietly checking the pod's systems. He was calm, almost unnervingly so. Sciella wondered how humans could remain so steady in the face of danger. She felt small, fragile, and uncertain. "You're quiet," Caleb said finally, breaking the silence. "You've been through a lot. Do you want to talk about it?" Sciella hesitated. She had always been trained to keep secrets, even from her own people. Her mentors had trusted her with delicate information, expecting her loyalty above all else. Could she trust a human with the truth? She studied Caleb's face, his sharp brown eyes fixed on the controls, and decided she had little choice. "They came for me," she began slowly. "Not by accident. Someone wanted me gone. Someone powerful." Caleb glanced at her. "Your people?" Sciella nodded. "Yes, I was blamed for a failure I did not cause. My mentors turned against me. They sent me to Vetra and left me to die quietly. I trusted them, and they betrayed me." Caleb's jaw tightened. "I'm sorry. That's unfair. But we'll deal with it. We'll survive." Scilla's eyes met his. There was something about his certainty, his refusal to panic, that gave her a strange sense of hope. "You don't even know me," she said softly. "Maybe not," he replied. "But I know enough to see that you deserve to live. That's enough for now." The pod's small navigation screen flickered. Caleb leaned closer, scanning the data. "We're still a few light days from the nearest human settlement," he said. "If they're tracking us, we have some time, but not much. We need to move carefully." Sciella nodded. She was learning quickly that humans were different from her people. They did not always follow rules or traditions, but they adapted. They acted fast. They survived. And right now, survival was all that mattered. For hours, they drifted in silence. Sciella tried to study Caleb, trying to understand the human way of thinking. She had always found humans unpredictable, but she was beginning to see a pattern. Cautious, clever, and surprisingly loyal when someone earned their trust. Finally, Caleb spoke again. "We need to find a safe place to hide and gather information. You said your people are powerful. How powerful?" Sciella took a deep breath. "The Council controls entire star systems. They manipulate trade, politics, and even military forces. If they see someone as a threat, they eliminate that person quietly, without leaving a trace. I have seen what they do to those who oppose them." Caleb's eyes narrowed. "So they're organized, dangerous. And they came for you because they see you as a problem." "Yes," Sciella said. Her voice trembled. "I know too much. I have knowledge they do not want humans or anyone else to have. If they capture me, they will use me, or worse, destroy me." Caleb reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we make sure that doesn't happen. You're not going to be taken. Not while I'm here. Scifi felt a flicker of something she had not felt in a long time. Trust. She did not fully understand this human, but she believed in his resolve. And for the first time since her exile began, she felt a small spark of hope. The next day, they entered a dense asteroid belt to hide from potential pursuers. The pod weaved between massive rocks, moving carefully to avoid collisions. Scifi's hands gripped the edge of the seat as she watched the stones glide past. Caleb guided them with steady hands, his focus unwavering. "You're good at this," she said, unable to hide a hint of admiration. Caleb smirked. "Humans survive by improvising. That's how we do things. You'll get used to it." Scifi shook her head. "I have adapted to my people's rules and protocols all my life. Improvising, it is different." "It takes practice," Caleb said, "and you're doing fine." Hours passed, and the pod emerged on the other side of the asteroid belt. They were safe for the moment, but Scifi knew this was only temporary. Her enemies would not stop. She needed to learn how to fight back, how to survive, and perhaps how to trust Caleb completely. Later, when they rested, Scifi decided to share more about her people. "Humans, you do not understand our culture," she said. "Loyalty is everything. Betrayal is unimaginable. We are taught that we must serve the collective, that the good of the whole is above all else. I believed it. I believed in them. And now I know how fragile trust can be." Caleb listened quietly. "Sounds like a lot of pressure," he said. "It is," Scifi admitted, "and that is why betrayal hurts so deeply. I cannot explain it in your terms. It is like losing a part of myself." Caleb nodded. "I get it. Humans feel that too in our own ways. Losing someone you trust, it can break you, but surviving it can make you stronger." Scifi considered his words. Humans were strange. They could be reckless, emotional, and sometimes cruel, but they could also be steady, resilient, and capable of deep loyalty. She began to wonder if she had underestimated them all along. As the days passed, Caleb and Scifi worked together to find a safe route through space. They avoided major trade lanes, hid in asteroid fields, and used abandoned stations for rest. Each day, Scifi learned more about humans, how they moved, how they planned, how they survived. And each day, her trust in Caleb grew. One evening, as they hid near a small, uncharted planet, Scifi finally spoke of the larger danger. "There is more," she said, her voice low. "The Council does not just punish failure. They control information, manipulate trade, and influence other species. They are preparing something, a plan that could threaten humans and other civilizations." Caleb's brow furrowed. "What kind of plan?" Scifi shook her head. "I do not know all the details, but it involves manipulation and control on a scale I have never seen, and if they succeed, it will be difficult for anyone to stop them." Caleb leaned back, thinking. "Then we need to warn someone. The humans need to know what's coming. We can't stop them alone." Scifi hesitated. "If we contact humans too soon, we risk exposing ourselves. If they capture me, the Council will eliminate me before anyone listens. I must be careful." Caleb nodded slowly. "Then we wait for the right moment. But we prepare, and we watch for danger." Days turned into weeks. Scifi and Caleb moved through uncharted regions, avoiding detection. They scavenged for supplies, repaired the pod, and studied any information Scifi had brought with her. With Caleb's help, she began to understand how humans could use intelligence and strategy to survive, even against more powerful opponents. One night, as they floated near the edge of a gas cloud, Caleb spoke again. "You know, Humans are often underestimated by other species. People think we are weak or foolish. But we survive. We adapt. And sometimes, we can be surprisingly dangerous when we have to be. Sayela looked at him, studying his face in the dim light. I am beginning to see that. Humans are not like my people. You do not always follow rules. You improvise. You act when necessary, not because someone tells you to. Caleb smiled faintly. Exactly. And that unpredictability can be an advantage. You just need to learn to use it. Sayela nodded. She realized something important. She had been trained to trust rules, orders, and the collective. But sometimes, survival meant trusting instincts, trusting allies, and acting even when the path was unclear. And for the first time since her exile, she felt that she could survive. Not alone, but with Caleb at her side. The following week, they made a stop at an abandoned space station. It was old, dusty, and partially damaged, but it offered temporary safety. Sayela used the station's old data terminals to access encrypted messages from her home world. She discovered disturbing information. Her people were not only hunting her, but they were also planning to extend their control over human systems. Caleb studied the information with her. This is serious, he said. Your people, they're planning something big, and humans could be caught in the middle. Sayela swallowed hard. Yes, that is why I must survive. If I fall into their hands, everything they are planning will continue unchecked. I cannot allow that to happen. Caleb placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we make sure you survive. And we warn others. You're not alone in this anymore. Sayela looked at him. She knew it was true. She could not trust everyone, but she could trust Caleb. And in the unpredictable human way, that trust gave her a strength she had not felt in months. Together, they began planning their next steps. Sayela would reveal what she knew, slowly and carefully. Caleb would help her navigate human systems and avoid detection. And together, they would prepare for the challenges ahead, knowing that danger could strike at any moment. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a vast and silent witness to their journey. Sayela felt a small spark of hope. She had been betrayed, abandoned, and hunted. But with Caleb, she might survive. And survival was the first step toward something greater, exposing the Council's plans and protecting those who could not protect themselves. As the pod drifted onward, Sayela realized something profound. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but they had a strength that her people often underestimated. And perhaps, in that unpredictability, there was hope. She looked at Caleb, and he met her gaze with steady eyes. For the first time since her exile began, she felt certain of one thing. She would not face the coming storm alone. And somewhere deep in the stars, their journey continued. Toward danger, toward truth, and toward a future that was still uncertain, but now filled with possibility. Sayela and Caleb's escape pod drifted silently through space, the stars stretching endlessly around them. Days of travel had made their routine simple. Rest, repair the pod, and carefully observe for signs of pursuit. But Sayela knew the danger was never far behind. Her people, the Council, were relentless. Caleb monitored the pod's instruments. We're close to a human-controlled system, he said. It's small, but it has communication stations. We might be able to contact someone officially there. Sayela nodded. We must be careful. If the Council discovers our signals, it could lead them directly to us. Caleb glanced at her. You're worried about your people following us, right? Yes, Sayela replied. They are clever. They anticipate moves, cover their tracks, and manipulate others to do their work. If they find us too soon, it will be impossible to stop them. Caleb's eyes narrowed. Then we plan. We don't rush. Humans survive because we prepare for the unknown. You'll see that soon enough. The pod entered the small human system and approached a communications relay station. Caleb maneuvered the ship carefully, avoiding detection. Ciela studied the relay, remembering how humans used technology differently from her people. Her mentors valued control and hierarchy. Humans valued ingenuity, even if it was messy. Once they docked at the station, Caleb initiated the communication protocols. Ciela typed carefully into the terminal, encrypting her messages. She sent detailed reports of her people's plans, the Council's control over star systems, their manipulations of trade, and their attempts to monitor and control humans. She paused and stared at the message. She had revealed everything she knew, trusting humans with secrets that could change the balance of power. Caleb watched her closely. "Are you sure you want to send this?" he asked. Ciela nodded. "If we wait too long, the Council will act. Humans must know before it is too late." Caleb hit the send button. The message traveled across space, encrypted but urgent, to human authorities. Within hours, the human system responded. A team of officials, including a commander named Megan Ross and a strategist named Nathan Brooks, reviewed Ciela's message. They questioned every detail, verifying facts before acting. Ciela watched them work through the terminal's feed. Humans were cautious. They did not blindly trust her, but they investigated thoroughly. Caleb explained quietly, "Humans are careful. They test information before they act. It's different from your people, who often assume loyalty is enough. Humans need proof." Ciela nodded. She had to admit, their method was effective. While her people relied on hierarchy and obedience, humans relied on evidence and reasoning, and now, with proof from her own data, they had reason to act. The humans did not waste time. They deployed reconnaissance drones and small observation ships to monitor the Council's activities. Ciela and Caleb observed the movements carefully, noting the patterns and the weaknesses. Every decision the humans made was calculated. Ciela felt a mix of admiration and relief. These humans could fight back. One evening, Caleb spoke. "You see, humans are not just reactive. We prepare, we adapt, and we plan for the unexpected. That's why we survive." Ciela studied him. "Your people underestimate you. They believe humans are weak, unorganized, and slow. But you are clever. You anticipate, you strategize, and you act when necessary. I am beginning to understand that." Caleb smiled faintly. "Exactly. And that understanding can save lives, including yours." As the days passed, the humans' response grew more coordinated. Ciela provided intelligence, detailing council strategies, secret stations, and methods of manipulation. The humans analyzed the data, planning careful countermeasures. Ciela was impressed. They did not rush to attack. Instead, they used her knowledge to predict the Council's moves, to create traps and defenses that would minimize casualties. Ciela realized that humans combined courage with caution. They did not act recklessly, but they did act decisively when the moment came. Caleb and Ciela worked closely with the human teams. They studied star charts, communication logs, and council reports. Ciela taught them the Council's tactics, their hidden codes, and the subtle ways they influenced allies and enemies alike. The humans listened, questioned, and verified. Ciela began to feel a sense of belonging she had never known before. Here, her knowledge mattered. Here, she was not just a pawn or a liability, she was a key player in a larger plan. One day, while reviewing data, Ciela discovered a troubling development. The Council had begun mobilizing forces near human trading routes, aiming to establish control before humans could respond. The timeline was tighter than she had expected. "They're moving faster than I anticipated," she said, her voice tense. "If humans do not act soon, they will gain strategic positions that will be very difficult to reclaim." Caleb nodded. "Then we tell them. Every detail matters. They need to know where the Council is strongest and where they are vulnerable." Scylla compiled the information and sent it to the human command team. Commander Megan Ross responded quickly. "We've analyzed the data. Your intelligence is solid. We will adjust our deployments and prepare defensive positions. Thank you for your cooperation." Scylla felt a flicker of hope. Humans were not blindly trusting, but they were competent. They were preparing. They were ready to act. The next step involved reconnaissance missions. Caleb and Scylla volunteered to assist, using the escape pod's capabilities to scout Council-controlled systems. Scylla guided Caleb through the Council's patterns, showing him the hidden patrol routes, observation satellites, and secret stations. As they approached one system, Caleb asked cautiously, "Are you sure about this? If we're caught, it could be dangerous." Scylla nodded firmly. "We have no choice. The humans need information, and I can guide you safely, but we must be precise. One mistake could be fatal." They entered the system under cover of darkness, weaving through asteroid fields and avoiding patrol satellites. Scylla's knowledge of the Council's tactics allowed them to remain undetected. She realized that her years of training, once a tool of betrayal, could now save lives. From their hidden vantage point, they observed Council fleets preparing for movement. Scylla recorded patterns, noting which ships were most vulnerable and which patrols were least alert. Caleb navigated with care, keeping the pod invisible to sensors. After several hours, they returned to the human-controlled system, delivering the intelligence to Commander Ross and Nathan Brooks. The humans analyzed the data and began moving strategic forces into position. Scylla watched, her heart swelling with cautious optimism. For the first time, she felt that she could make a real difference. "You've done well," Caleb said quietly. "Your knowledge is helping humans act before the Council strikes. That's powerful." Scylla smiled faintly. "I never thought I would find value outside my people. But here, I feel useful. I feel part of something important." Caleb nodded. "Humans don't always know what they're doing, but they adapt. And with your guidance, we can level the playing field." Days turned into weeks. Scylla and Caleb continued to provide intelligence, helping humans set up defenses, predict Council movements, and protect critical systems. The Council, unaware that one of their own had betrayed their plans, moved forward confidently. Scylla realized that they underestimated humans, just as Caleb had said. One evening, while reviewing data with Commander Ross, Scylla noticed a pattern. "They are overconfident," she said. "They believe they can strike quickly and control humans before a response forms. But they are leaving gaps, weak points we can exploit." Commander Ross leaned forward. "Show me." Scylla highlighted patrol routes, fleet movements, and supply lines. The humans studied the maps carefully. "This is valuable," Nathan Brooks said. "We can create ambushes, intercept communications, and slow their advance. Your knowledge is giving us the edge." Scylla felt a strange pride. She had been betrayed, abandoned, and hunted. But now, she was giving humans the power to resist the Council. For the first time, she felt she could make a real difference. Caleb watched her quietly. "You see, humans can be more than you think, and together, we can change what happens next." Scylla nodded. "Yes, and I will do everything I can to help. I will not let the Council succeed." As the humans mobilized, Scylla realized something important. Trust, once broken, could be rebuilt. Betrayal, once felt, could be overcome. And humans, unpredictable and clever, were capable of courage and loyalty she had never seen in her own people. For the first time since her exile, she felt a sense of purpose. She had been betrayed, hunted, and abandoned. But she had found allies. She had found a new home among humans who valued action, honesty, and intelligence. And together, they would face the coming storm. The stars stretched endlessly around them, silent witnesses to the quiet preparations and careful plans. Sciella knew the council would act soon, but she was no longer powerless. With Caleb by her side and humans willing to fight alongside her, she felt ready for what was coming. And somewhere deep in the dark expanse of space, the council's forces moved, unaware that one of their own had turned against them, and that humans were preparing to resist with knowledge, strategy, and courage. Sciella watched the stars stretch endlessly outside the command center's window. The human fleet was in position, spread across key sectors, ready to respond to any council movement. For weeks, she had provided intelligence, guided strategies, and helped humans anticipate the council's moves. Now, it all came down to what would happen next. Caleb stood beside her, adjusting his scanner. "They're moving faster than predicted," he said, "but our positions are strong. If they make a mistake, it could cost them." Sciella nodded, her hands pressed lightly against the cool metal of the console. She had once believed that her life had no meaning outside her people, that betrayal had stripped her of purpose. But now, watching humans coordinate with precision and courage, she felt the weight of possibility. She could make a difference. She could change the outcome. The first council fleet appeared on sensors, moving with confidence, assuming humans would be unprepared. Siella's heart raced. "They think they're clever," she whispered. "They don't realize we know their patterns, their strategies, their mistakes." Commander Megan Ross's voice came through the comm. "Prepare defensive maneuvers. Stay ready for engagement. Sciella, we'll follow your guidance on council weaknesses." Sciella took a deep breath. "They have gaps in their supply lines. Some patrols are predictable. Use the asteroid fields for cover. Lure their scouts into traps. Do not engage the main fleet until we can isolate their support ships." Caleb looked at her, impressed. "You've thought of everything." "I had to," Sciella said. "If humans fail, the council will continue. Millions could be at risk. I cannot allow that." The first skirmish began near a dense asteroid belt. Human drones and small ships took positions while the council's scouts advanced. Sciella guided Caleb and the human commanders, predicting patrol movements and intercepting communications. Every decision had to be precise. Mistakes could be fatal. As council scouts entered the asteroid belt, humans ambushed them. The council ships were caught off guard, forced to retreat. Sensors lit up with enemy positions, and human commanders quickly adapted. Siella's heart pounded with relief and tension. This was only the beginning. "Caleb, adjust the pod's position," she said. "We need to relay more intelligence directly to the front lines. Watch for council reinforcements." Caleb complied, maneuvering the small pod through the shadows of massive rocks, keeping it hidden from sensors. Sciella fed him information, guiding strikes and marking weak points. The humans began gaining the advantage, slowly but steadily. Hours passed. The council, confident in their plan, committed more ships, but the humans, following Sciella's guidance, intercepted supply lines, disabled communication satellites, and created confusion within the fleet. Sciella realized that the council had underestimated both humans and her own willingness to act. Finally, a council commander called in through intercepted communications. Their voice was sharp, angry. "Who is guiding these humans? How do they anticipate every move?" Sciella's fingers clenched the console. She had once feared her people's power. Now she realized that knowledge, strategy, and courage could turn the tide. She allowed herself a small, quiet smile. As the engagement intensified, Caleb moved the pod to relay critical positions to human fleets. "Stay calm," he said. "We've got this." Sciella nodded, her mind racing. Every calculation mattered. Every suggestion she made could save lives. She felt alive in a way she had not since her exile. For the first time, betrayal felt like a distant memory rather than a defining wound. The council's main fleet approached, believing humans were still unprepared. But human ships moved with precision, guided by Sciela's knowledge of council tactics. Ambushes, traps, and careful positioning turned the engagement in humanity's favor. The council ships found themselves isolated, their reinforcements delayed, their communication disrupted. Sciela watched the sensors, noting the weakening points. "Now," she said quietly, "strike their supply ships first. They won't recover without them." Megan Ross ordered the attack. Human forces moved swiftly, disabling council supply lines. Ships that had once seemed invincible were now stranded, forced to retreat or surrender. Sciela felt a thrill of triumph. The council's overconfidence had become their undoing. Caleb glanced at her. "You did this. You gave us the edge we needed." Sciela shook her head. "I did what I had to do. Humans executed it. That is why we are winning." The council commander, realizing defeat was imminent, ordered a retreat. Their fleet scattered, leaving behind damaged ships and broken supply lines. Humans moved carefully, avoiding unnecessary risk, while ensuring the council could not regroup quickly. Sciela allowed herself a deep breath. Weeks of fear, planning, and preparation had led to this moment. The council's plans had been exposed and disrupted, their forces fractured. Humans had survived where many believed they would fall. Caleb smiled, relief visible in his expression. "We did it," he said quietly. Sciela nodded, though her mind was already considering the next steps. "This is only the beginning," she said. "The council will regroup, but now, humans are prepared. They have knowledge. They have strategy. They have hope." The aftermath of the battle was careful and measured. Human forces repaired damage, rescued stranded ships, and secured critical systems. Sciela worked closely with the commanders, sharing every piece of information she had about council tactics, political maneuvers, and hidden stations. Each detail strengthened human defenses and ensured that future attacks would be less likely to succeed. One evening, as Sciela walked through a human base, she realized how different this world was from her own people. There was chaos, yes, but there was freedom too. People spoke openly, shared ideas, and acted based on reason and courage rather than blind obedience. For the first time, she felt that she could belong somewhere outside the rigid structure of Lyria. Caleb approached her. "You know, you could stay here. Humans need people like you, not as a tool, but as a partner." Sciela looked at him, thinking carefully. Her people had betrayed her, left her to die, and tried to manipulate the universe without mercy. Humans had shown her honesty, courage, and loyalty in ways she had never experienced before. I think I would like that," she said softly. "I want to help humans navigate what comes next. I want to be part of something real, something that values life and action." Caleb nodded, smiling. "Then welcome. You've earned it." Sciela felt a strange warmth, a sense of home she had never known. She had survived betrayal, faced danger, and learned that trust could be rebuilt. She had also learned that strength came not from obedience alone, but from courage, intelligence, and action. The council's remnants retreated to hidden systems, regrouping in secrecy. Sciela knew they were not defeated forever, but she also knew humans were no longer easy targets. With knowledge, preparation, and courage, they could resist any threat. In the quiet of the base, Sciela reflected on her journey. Betrayal had almost destroyed her, but it had also led her to humans, to Caleb, and to a purpose she could believe in. She realized that survival was not enough. True strength came from action, from courage, and from standing with those who would fight alongside you. Caleb joined her at the observation deck, looking out at the stars. "You've changed a lot since you arrived," he said. Sciela smiled faintly. "Yes. Betrayal taught me to be cautious, but humans taught me to act." I understand now that survival is not just about avoiding danger. It's about shaping the future, protecting those who cannot protect themselves, and refusing to give up hope. Caleb nodded. That's what humans do too. We survive, yes, but we also fight, adapt, and protect. You fit right in. Sayela looked at the stars, imagining the vastness of the universe, the dangers that still lurked, and the opportunities that lay ahead. She knew her people would not give up easily. The council would return, perhaps stronger and more cunning. But she also knew humans would be ready. With courage, intelligence, and unity, they could face any threat. For the first time in a long time, Sayela felt truly free. She was no longer a pawn, no longer a victim, and no longer alone. She had found a new family among humans, people who valued action over appearances, courage over fear, and loyalty over blind obedience. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the council plotted. But Sayela was no longer powerless. She had allies, knowledge, and the determination to act. Together with humans, she would face the coming challenges. Together, they would survive, and perhaps even thrive. Sayela turned to Caleb. "Thank you," she said softly. He smiled. "No need. You earned this. We earned this. And this is only the beginning." The stars stretched endlessly before them, silent witnesses to the end of one battle and the beginning of another. Sayela had been betrayed, hunted, and abandoned, but she had found trust, courage, and a new home. She was ready for whatever came next, ready to stand with humans and ready to face the universe without fear. And so, drifting among the stars, Sayela understood the truth she had learned through betrayal and survival. Sometimes, the greatest strength comes not from those who promise loyalty, but from those who act when it matters most. With Caleb by her side and humans ready to fight alongside her, she was no longer alone. She was not a pawn. She was not a victim. She was a force to be reckoned with, and the universe would soon learn that betrayal could be overcome, and that courage, intelligence, and trust could change everything.